Hi, Tiff. Welcome to Awaken and Align. So glad that you're here and that we're speaking together.
Hey Laura, hey everyone out there in the cosmos. Really excited to be here.
Today is, I just want to say the number of the day because you picked this specifically 2222. So it's like a portal. Do you want to share
Mhm.
why you picked this day specifically?
Honestly, it was a really spontaneous pick for me, actually. I think it was the first date of the new year that was available in your schedule. And then when I actually sat with myself and saw it and emailed you back to confirm, I was like, holy shit, it's 22, and the two actually represents Earth in the I Ching,
Hmm.
which is the receptive.
Mhm.
And not only that, it's actually 2 p.m. PST at my time. So it's all these twos, and just thought it was like a synchronistic thing, and just um how what I'm calling in right now is more receptivity and to be open to more opportunities. And this being, yeah, being a guest on this podcast is one of them. So yeah, it was unintentional, but probably intentional and guided. And if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
totally makes sense. And
Mhm.
when you just shared that, I'm also calling in more receptivity and more because my birth date is a 20, so it reduces to a 2. So
Yeah.
this is like my lifelong lesson is to lean more into the yin and be more receptive and allowing. And I really do believe when you set your intentions out there, it comes back to you in a way that you don't expect. So thank you for reflecting that back to me.
Totally. Glad
So
to be
I,
here.
yeah, so I just want to start from really wherever you want your origin story. And I asked you a little bit about this with my reading. So Tiff read my BaZi chart. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And we're going to talk about that later, but I just wanted to let our listeners know about you on a more personal level.
Yeah, of course. Oh, wow. Thank you for the space. Right now for the listeners, I'm looking down at my little cup of tea, Tulsi Rose, and yeah, just feeling really blessed to be here in this body, in this land. I'm currently living, playing, working in Ohlone territory in Oakland. So shout out to all the Bay Area folks out there. And raised in Taiwan, Taipei, Taiwan, or rather born in Taiwan, raised in New Jersey, forgive me. And I feel like I've lived one of those very much like going in rabbit holes, coming out, feeling really alive, feeling like I know myself, and then coming out of it and being like, ah, actually, there was a lot of trauma from that last exploratory hole. And it's really hard for me to really pinpoint where to start on my journey or my path, but let's just say today I'm coming to all of you, really through a deeper reverence for my ancient Chinese cultural customs and practices through the lens of BaZi Chinese astrology, feng shui, uh, having healed through some spots, some really hard conditioning thoughts as far as Chinese culture and the things that we take on. And as a queer non-binary individual, feel like I've almost like in this warrior, which is very much the ox in me, and then the dragon, which is the disruptor element in me. I'm privileged to come forth today to tell my story however it wants to come out. So yeah, I guess to go and say origins, hail from Taiwan with a lot of love for Taiwan, Taipei, Taiwan. um my Chinese name is Ling Yushen. Ling as in the forest, Yu as in the rain, and Shen as in wandering. So I
Beautiful.
know I'm actually coming to really, really deeply respect my name and the etymology and the origins. And of course, the last 2 years of the increase in Asian violence and hate, like, spurred something else in me of, really unpacking all of the internalized racism we grow up with being Asian American. And yeah, I don't have all of the answers, and I'm not going to pretend I do, but I do feel stronger and more um, rooted to who I am and where I come from today. So thank you for, yeah, allowing me to share a bit about what that is and what that looked like.
I don't know what it is about. I should have I should have done some kind of energy shield because I'm so empathic, but I just feel like I want to cry because every word you said like hit
Mhm.
me at such a like root chakra level, like a very base level. And I know that you have come to this space in this moment in time, having
Yeah.
gone through and transmuted a lot of stuff and continuing to do that. So thank you for being so vulnerable and so open with your energy because I know it's not
Mhm.
easy sometimes when we haven't been seen and heard by specifically our community as well. So thank you.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for reflecting that back. Yeah, it's taken me a while to come to a point where I can claim space and share the depth that I actually feel and not have someone on the other side feel uncomfortable or interrupt. So thanks for holding that space. And yeah, yeah. Love, love, love that we've intersected at this point. And yeah,
The
curious what
stars
questions you have that are coming forth, because I can just talk in circles all day.
the stars have been aligned. Well, I was sharing with Tiff that I set out my intentions out into the universe. I'm a pretty good manifester, especially people. And I wanted to interview somebody for Chinese astrology who is Asian. And I say it just as how it sounds. And
Yes.
I found Tiff through your teacher, Angie Cho, who I just interviewed as well. I think through the algorithm, I found
Yeah.
you and I was reading your Instagram posts, and there was so much poetry and storytelling there.
Mm.
I, I was like, yes,
Mhm.
definitely. And then I got my chart read by you and how careful you were and how thoughtful you were and intentional. And it just um, really, really mattered to me. So I'm just so glad that I get to. And I said that I would use my experience and my chart as an example, as a guinea pig. But what I got out of it the most, and I shared it with you, Tiff, at the end,
Mhm.
was I just feel seen for who I truly am, and just knowing that I'm doing my dharma, like my path, and expressing myself and allowing my chi to like flow is all really I want. And I think it's what most people want to know is if they're on the right path.
Yes.
There wasn't a
Yes.
question in there, just a statement to your work. And yeah, and I also before I ask you a question,
Mm.
I did watch Mulan over the weekend, and it was such a beautiful story. But I resonate so much with her character in the movie and how I'll never forget how she recognized that she couldn't allow her chi to flow because she wasn't living her authenticity.
Yes. That was a really important point, that I'm glad was made and transmitted, was that if she were honest and true to herself, her chi, which is authentic to her own system and her own meridians, can flow effortlessly, and the world will be more blessed with what she was here and meant to give. So, yeah,
Yeah, it was
loved it.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Which brings me to my, I guess, my second question technically is I'm assuming that growing up Asian, and I'm only projecting my own experiences, you were maybe conditioned to follow a certain path, a traditional path, quote unquote, to bring honor to your family. And did you do that for a while and then you found your, I guess, your gifts, or did you
Yeah.
just know right away and do it?
Um, yeah, thank you for this question because it allows me to reflect on my past and the relationship I have with my parents, my ancestry, being born in Taiwan, um, and like the daughter of Taiwanese immigrants who've made their own way, to America to build their own business, their own empire, so to speak. And they were very successful in what they did. And so I have a lot of pride to be, my mom says, y'all have a lot of karma to be born in this family. And with that came a lot of, the filial piety Confucian values of respect your elders was a huge one that we were all raised with growing up. And I think that had translated to if your parents need something, you provide, you give. And I really internalized that, especially being the middle child and was like a straight A student, overachiever, varsity lacrosse, like did all of the things, did all of the clubs, activities. And I went to NYU Stern because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And it felt like, shout out to my siblings if they listen to this, they were the artists, right? And they went to art school. I was like, my dad, who started his own business, is going to count on me, the smart one, that he like whispered in my ears growing up, are you the best in class, are you the best in class? I'm like, yes, dad. Really, that like competitiveness I had was instilled, and I see that that's also the dragon character. But anyway, so to speak, I did all the things, and it came to a point where maybe realizing that my path isn't just to make my parents proud in that sense of achievement. Um, they just want to see me happy. And that was something that was transmitted when I went back to live in Taiwan in my mid 20s to, get on that path of taking over my father's business as is expected from like a second generational family business owner kind of Chinese mentality. And it was a hard 3 years, Taiwan and China. And this isn't like Shanghai, China. Shanghai, China is cool. I studied abroad there a semester and it was fun. This is EU, China, which is more like provincial.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't have community, and I think it was during this time in my life where I felt like I had represented so much freedom being in New York and doing the couch surfing, hosting things, and backpacking and all of that, and had this whole like brand of live your life. And then I was needing to face this deep part, entrenched part of like, what do my parents want from me? What do I want for myself? And after 3 years spending time working with my father, which was really tumultuous in many different ways, yeah, I had to come to a point where I had to like ask myself, what are my gifts? Because I don't think it's being potentiated here in my family business. And no shame in that. I just felt like I was here to make my own legacy in my own way and to take the lessons my parents were able to give and to find myself all over again. So yeah, I wrote my dad like a 14-page letter of resignation. It's actually on Medium if for anyone who might
Wow.
have my same sort of lineage to see and to really feel the themes of getting outside of that filial piety, which could come from obligation to a place of following your desire, following the desire, even if there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And so that's one chapter of my life. And then coming into my path was a hard struggle. Yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. Like now it's like My dad's like, just know when you leave that there are two types of people in the world: people who lead and create, and then the people who follow. And they're almost slaves to that work. Which one are you?
Damn,
So it's a
Dad.
lot. It was a lot. I know my dad, double monkey, is
Intense.
pretty intense and spiritual and straightforward and bold in many ways. So yeah, I started my healing path after I left, and that went into a deep dive into sacred sexuality. Like, I needed to know what gave me pleasure and what aliveness felt like in my body.
Mhm.
It was like almost numbing myself out of the pains of people pleasing and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, that's a whole other story, but I'm going to pause there in case you have any other questions,
No,
because
I
it's a
was
whole
gonna say,
5 minutes.
please get into the sacred sexuality. I'm just curious as how, like, how did you start on that journey? Did you study with somebody, a philosophy?
Sure. Oh, wow. Um, I studied with many people, and I feel this is this is this is me being open and honest and feeling like the people who I studied with, as much as I respected them at the time I studied with them, like where I am now, of like decolonizing myself from white supremacy and whiteness, it's like, ah, yeah, I can't. I say this with honor to my path and where I was, is almost when I left China, I had held even more like internalized racism, didn't want to eat any of the Chinese foods because they made my skin oily and they blamed my weight gain and all that stuff, and followed the way towards a community that practiced orgasmic meditation. I don't know if you're familiar with this practice, but it's a very beautiful practice, very beautiful technology. Yeah, but as I was saying before and alluded to in the beginning, it's like when I'm healing, when I'm in the process of healing, of course, I'm taking on other stuff. And that's actually the goat path. The goat wants community, wants to find belonging. And it's like one of these lessons is go in, immerse yourself, go out, leave the things that are not yours to take on, and keep going and shining your light, right? And so, yeah, I studied under Nicole Daedone in One Taste. I studied under Sophia Sundari of the Priestess School, Tantra, Taoism. I studied under Eugene Hedlund in School of Tribal Tantra. Yeah,
How
a
did
lot
you
of,
know?
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted
No,
you.
no, no, no worries. Yeah.
How did you know that you wanted to go into that realm of pleasure versus like art therapy or something like that, Not like laughing at you. I'm just wondering like how you got to that path.
No, of course, of course. So something to know about my personality, my chart is Dragon Disruptor. It's almost like a kinesthetic artist, kinesthetic transmitter. I needed to immerse myself in community, in lived experiences over theoretical concepts. I mean, I could read the books and the podcasts about pleasure, about orgasm, about mystery, about, being a sacred slut, but ultimately it had to come from me being in those dynamics.
Yeah.
Some were beautiful, some probably were weird and, like controversial or subjective to that. In any case, I was able to feel the wisdom of my body from a purely like sensational base,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. It's like
Yes.
the body doesn't lie,
Right.
if you're turned on, you're turned on and you know it. And
Mhm.
so how can we, within the Asian diaspora, even, that's so numb and has so much shame and so much ostracization when it comes to like feeling pleasure versus obligation. Like, how can we open up those doors, those receptivities, and like really feel what like creativity, flow, aliveness feels like, unless we open our hearts and open ourselves to new experiences, which I guess for me needed to come from retreat spaces or intensives, 3-5 day containers with people, where we're just exploring all of that and also being led and guided along the way.
Was it because you were like sexually repressed growing
Hmm.
up? Was that not expressed because it was shameful, the
Yeah,
family or
yeah.
something?
I think shame has been just something that we internalize generations after generations.
Mhm.
And yeah, my parents never talk about sex. And there's probably the part in me that was closeted growing up and didn't know who to turn to because I didn't have any influences around that stuff. That was always like a non-binary gender fluid queerdo at heart, and was ashamed because it's hard for me to be like, mom, dad, like I love women, or like I get excited around women more than men. What is wrong with me? And it took me a long time, took me till I think 26 for me to come out and say those words. So yeah, I would say we live in a culture where there's a lot of sexual shame, and it's easier to be silent about it rather than to explore it and ask why.
Which is so interesting because like that sexual energy is max chi energy. It's like our
Yes.
primal creative energy. And
Yeah,
it's so
Mm.
interesting how it's like the Asian, and I'm generalizing here, the Asian diaspora, that it's like that's associated with that kind of shame because I would think that, again, like generalizing most, you know, most of our Asian cultures have a ancient philosophy around energy and chi. So wouldn't they understand that they go hand in hand?
I think in the ancient traditions, and there, we could look at and revisit museums and statues and whatnot, that our ancestors knew that sexual pleasure, orgasm, illuminates and provides and nourishes and clears out the system of stagnation.
Mhm.
And I think the last maybe 4 or 5 decades, we probably have lost that generation after generation. I don't really see much PDA within our Asian culture. Like I didn't grow up with that with my parents. So I would say, yeah, there's a loss, and it brings me a lot of pain to feel, but a sense of awkwardness with our own bodies, a sense of separation from our own bodies, not feeling safe in our own bodies because of traumas that were accrued over time, generation after generation, not receiving enough touch growing up, not being
Yeah,
held enough.
yeah.
And so, yeah, that translates to how we approach intimacy and relationships and partnerships. It's it's a cycle that I would love to see us all break.
I hope so. Just because like I studied Kundalini yoga in India in Rishikesh, and the first thing we learned was Kundalini, which is like our sexual primal energy. And they taught us how, like Tantra, it's like Kundalini Tantra, it's like how to use that energy, not just for sex, but pleasure, creativity, manifestation. And it's just such a shame. But but it's very interesting though that I feel that that helped you to find, it
Right.
was a pathway for you to find yourself in your own body.
Yes. 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 That when that expression healing is nonlinear, it's coming now as far as,
Mhm.
well, I know I needed to heal my relationship to my body because I was not treating my body nice in Asia at all. And, you know, I had a lot of fears around sex and orgasm, being 27, never having an orgasm or being in a real loving relationship. And
Mhm.
so that was the healing path I took. And then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I think now I feel myself.
Mm,
Now what? Now what is the path I want to take?
mm.
And yeah, it brings me here. And there were a lot of things I needed to work on and teach myself, decolonization included.
Mm.
Um, what it means to be in collective space, community, intentional community, what it means to like belong in this body, meaning what does it mean to belong in this land that we call home? And how do I want to leave it better off than when I got here?
Mm.
Yeah. So being in right relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, but that had to start with you first.
Exactly, exactly. It starts with the individual. And then when you as an individual can light up knowing what you like, what you don't like, what you want to do, what you want to really, really pursue and grow and create and birth and influence and inspire, that's when change can happen on a vibrational level. You call that in, you attract more people who are in that same vibe and that same healing process, and you elevate together.
Mm.
And yeah, it definitely, everyone has their own path. Everyone blossoms differently. I'm 33 and I feel like I just started all over again. So
Me too, and I'm almost 40.
yeah, exactly.
Reset. I have to say this thought before I forget because it keeps coming up, but this is the year of the water tiger, and
Yes.
I've read many Western astrologers say that the tiger is associated with the zodiac sign of Aquarius. And what you were just expressing is Aquarian energy is being radically yourself and authentic, but in
Mm-hmm.
doing that, you give other people the permission to be themselves, and then you know what you bring to the collective table. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that's like a segue into like, how did you get into studying your ancient practices from your lineage?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Thank you. So I was saying I had a lot of healing to do around feeling my body, which came from the avenues of sexual healing and sexual just expression. And so during pre-pandemic, I was at a state of doing like these serpentine intuitive bodywork sessions where it's really just about opening the heart and having people feel higher access to breath, like really slow, deliberate, intentional. And obviously that's body work, energy work. And then I was also hosting events for Asian community to bring folks together to feel pride in their culture. It was actually 2 years ago. It was this huge event called Sensation. I'm really proud of event organizing, bringing people together, gathering, right? That's GOAT. So when COVID hit, my whole world just collapsed. My whole identity collapsed. Like who I saw myself and my values and my gifts collapsed because obviously I couldn't be around people and I am such a, extroverted being. So yeah, I had to look at myself and almost start over again. And I really relied on the energy of the yin metal ox year. I think that's when I actually honestly started. Um, my partner, shout out to my partner. I just took a sip of tea, ground myself. Shout out to my partner, Sappho, for gifting me while I was in my moment of distress and education and falling apart, gifting me a reading from my teacher, our teacher, Mom, Miss Tank. So that's Miss MISSTANGQ.com is her website. And she's an amazing, amazing oracle artist, just being, like just truly transmitted the oral traditions that she studied for decades to me and my cohort. And before that, actually, I received a reading of my own, and that was the first time I felt my body again after the pandemic hit, and I began to understand my path, my past, my present, my future, the conflict I have with dragon that takes risks and wants to learn through going and diving into rabbit holes, and the ox that's super conservative actually is like step by step, needs to know and have a plan before it initiates, and how those two pillars had puts my body in this like almost like freeze anxious state, and it's hard to move, or when I move I fall, and when I fall I fail, and then I can't get myself back up because of that momentum and that drive. But anyway, working through all of that and integrating all of that, knowing how I feel alive through the embodiments of the animals specific to my chart and to the corresponding elements, the yang fire day master in me, which is like expressive, illuminating sun, generous and wants to give and wants to express itself unapologetically. The more I knew that and felt that, every time looking back in my life that I felt the yang fire and felt growth and strength, I I don't know, I take pride that my yang fire is associated with the tiger in my chart. And it just made these, I guess it made the pathways, and it gave me more acceptance, gave me more breath. Like, I'm doing things in my own pace. My animals can either be with me or in conflict, and if they're in conflict, it's okay. Like, we'll just wait it out and see what happens. You know, yeah, that's how I approached, or how I started the Chinese astrology path. And then I got into feng shui through mindful design school, and really opened my system to the stories and the lessons and the cosmic dance of yin and yang. And yeah, there's principles that are beginning to make sense on a body level versus on an intellectual level. And now I'm in this state where people are finding me now, actually, and it's like, you know, and giving Chinese astrology readings all year, and just to hone in my craft. And I feel like, I mean, you received a session last Friday. You can share your experience of it, but what my intention is really to take people on, like, as if I'm a dragon. I'm taking them on a ride through their past, present, future, for them to remember themselves and why they're here, and that to just ride the waves, because we all have them. And that's demonstrative of looking at a flower and seeing it bloom and blossom and then wither and decay. It's like we all have those cycles. And so yeah, just understanding the nature that exists within all of us.
When you just spoke about the riding the dragon, the vision in my mind was that scene in Shang-Chi when he's riding the water dragon. I'm like,
Totally.
yeah, I get it. I get it. No, I love how you speak in metaphors too, because I'm such a visual person. And first of all, to the listeners who are listening this, Mercury is still in retrograde. There's more than one animal in your chart, FYI,
Yeah.
which I was like,
Mhm.
huh? And and it's just so much more complex than people make it out to be. And what I mean by people, I mean like Western astrologers who have learned it through maybe like maybe not a traditional Chinese
Mm,
astrology course, but my point is that we're such nuanced creatures that we have like multi dimensions. And when you went through each of there's four pillars, right? So when you went through
yes.
each of not only the animals, which represent your four pillars, but the energies, and then
Yes.
the masculine, the feminine. And every time you went through each of them, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And it's almost like you were saying, an acceptance for yourself of how you just are naturally. So you might as well not fight it.
Yes. 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 Such a good point made. Is the stagnation of chi comes with when there's resistance in the body, that you're not living your dharma, your path. And
Mhm.
there's a quick lesson here on the Cosmic Trinity. Is like the foundational building block of all Chinese esoteric arts. Is we have these three forces called Tian, which is heaven; Ren, which is people; Di, which is earth.
Mhm.
And heaven states that there are things we cannot control, like when we were born, or our gender assignment, or the circumstances we were born into. Um, that's your destiny, is where Tian kind of occupies that energy space. Ren is willpower. So Tian and Ren, the correspondence or the relationship between Tian and Ren is actually where Chinese astrology comes from. Our Chinese ancients found that by studying the yin and yang, the waxing and waning of yin and yang in nature, in the seasons, in the cosmos, in the weather, reflect the microcosm of the yin and the yang and the waxing and waning of those principles in our own human body and nature. So by knowing your astrology, you can follow your dharma and your destiny and your path.
Mhm.
And, you know, not everyone's destiny might be easy. Okay. Like it's hard, you know, especially in capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy environments. And that's where the correspondence between Ren and Di are so fundamental. And that's where feng shui was born, right? Is like you can alter your environment to increase your luck or your opportunities in your life that will help you follow your heaven sent destiny.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I just had to bring that up. I don't know if that transmitted or that landed, but it's just
Yes.
one of these things is like, we're here for a reason, born here at a specific time. And so, yeah.
Yes. And I also would like to say just because something is challenging doesn't mean that it's bad. I think,
Right. Thank you for
in
saying that. Mhm.
astrology, in so I really do try to study all forms of astrology, not just like I'm a classical astrologer or I'm a modern astrologer. But the one thing I will say with a lot of classical astrologers and Western mindsets that I hear is like, oh my God, Mars and whatever, they're gonna fuck us over and it's gonna be so bad. But I honestly don't think that I feel like everything in nature is neutral at its like best, right? It's and just because something is challenging doesn't mean that it's going to be bad or something that's easy is not good either. It just is the
Mhm.
way we flow with energy and the flow of
Exactly.
life. And
Yes.
because people look at my astrological chart and they're like, "Oh, like you've had a rough time." And I would say, "Yes, but it has molded me like clay, like God molding the clay into somebody who, if I do say so myself, has a lot of resilience and who has a lot of self-empowerment because I went through those said challenges." So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes. Thank you for naming that. Yes. Exactly. Like snaps to that. Um, the resilience comes from that yin wood, by the way. That's the mission of, I think it was your rabbit in your father pillar and the yang wood in your tiger. Yeah. So those forces that come alive when you need it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you know or have knowledge around Western astrology?
Actually, yeah, shout out to my Western astrologer, Li Zhen, who is Taiwanese as well. Um,
Yay.
yeah, I took like a 13-week course from her and
Oh,
had an
wow.
amazing cohort experience. But again, this is all recent for me.
Mhm. And do you see similarities between the two
Mm.
systems?
Yeah, you know, as far as certain, like for example, Rooster feels very Libra and Virgo to me. That aligns, right?
Mhm.
That the Rooster season is also the same as um, the Libra Virgo sun, for
Mhm.
example. I think that they tell similar stories, but just in a different way. And
Mhm.
so, what I love about bots is it really opens your system to understand your own nature cycles.
Mhm.
So, that's where the five elements, the Wu Xing, comes in play to see you not as just like a robot machine or like who you are in relationship to people, but to your own energy, to you having young water rat and you feeling reflected as the ocean, you know,
Mhm.
that movement within you that needs to move, needs to network, needs to connect, needs to grow and expand, right? So um yeah, that's where I feel Batsi has that like something just clicks. Now Western astrology, let's see, Yeah, I feel like Western astrology is like there's reverence for the cosmos and the planets and the placements and all of that. I think that the link between that system and the way that Western astrology is processed and synthesized probably matches to the BaZi Chinese astrology system in the, having the placements of the stars,
Mhm. And the
which can
elements. Yeah.
tell you, yeah, the house placements feel similar to the placements of the ancestral stars and the gods.
Mhm.
But yeah, how these folks figured it out is just, I don't know. It comes from a very animist place.
Totally.
Mhm.
Be careful, y'all. I have a lot of yang water.
This is true. Is a lot of movement, a lot of ocean
I'm
depth. Ocean
I'm
is deep, yo.
I'm still like integrating everything that you told me from
Sure. Yeah.
last week, but it makes so much sense. I'm like, obviously that's me. I did have one technical question about the four pillars. So there's the child, the father, the mother, and then the elder. Is there like is the child more your sun sign and your mother's
Yes.
like your moon and I
Right.
was
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the father was.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad that you said that. It's been easy for me to explain. And of course, there's so much nuance, but
Mhm.
child pillar is who you were in your childhood, your first initial chi imprint at birth. So who you were before your conditioning set place. And if the sun sign resembles that, embodies that, then yes, for sure. And then the mother pillar is like your intuition, your karmic inheritance.
Mhm.
It's like your where your emotions gather, and perhaps the themes that show up ancestrally in your line. And when I think of moon, I think of family, I think of ancestors, I
Mhm.
think of what I need to nurture myself and my spirit. So yeah, it's quite it's similar, you know. I would go as far as saying mother feels more like moon than anything else.
Mhm.
And then the elder pillar is who you will evolve to become. So that's where the future element is. And of course, we in our lifetime, we are attracted by the themes of our elder pillar because that is the themes we need to learn and to embody even greater in our life experience. So that feels like North Node to me.
I was just gonna say that.
Yes, yes,
I was
yes.
just
Okay,
gonna
I'm
say
glad. Yeah, I'm
that.
glad we can talk about it because I'm learning too, you know. Father pillar is who you are when you're going through challenges and obstacles and periods of growth. Like you call it that, like masculine drive as far as your adolescence, like figuring out what are the things, the tools you need to study, to motivate yourself, to get that desire, that dream that you want. So I don't know. What do you think?
I when you were going through each of them, I was trying to figure it out, and to me, the child seems very sun because the sun is ruled by Leo, which is the fifth house, and the fifth house is all about your inner child and playfulness and it talks about children. And then the
Hmm.
moon is like what you were saying, like nurturing, receptive. It's kind of your emotional needs, and that's very much moon. And then when you were talking about elder, I felt definitely North Node. And then father, maybe your ascendant, maybe. It's kind of in the background.
Yeah, yeah, could be. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ascendant feels. I mean, I'll just say for father pillar, it's like who you invoke or embody when you know that you need to like get out of a funk. So if ascendant has that like underlying theme,
Mhm.
then yeah.
So when you hear people giving these, you do it on your Instagram, you put
Hmm.
each animal and you talk about the energies, and you hear people saying the year of the water tiger, and these are the animals that are going to have a good year, and these are the animals that are going to have a bad year. Which animal or pillar do we look at?
Mm.
All of them.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what's going on that I want to just take the time to say is, you know how like Westerners have bastardized yoga and all these practices that don't
Yeah,
belong to us.
like every
Yes, I feel that's your podcast, right? So
yeah.
so unfortunately, we are still in that stage as far as Chinese astrology. What I'm seeing
Mhm.
is that people just want to
The
know
quick,
what they want without knowing the details and the history and the context. And BaZi is translates to ba, eight, zi characters, 8 characters, for a reason. Like there's so many principles and elements and the interactions within those elements that determine your unique blueprint. And for us to say something as like, oh, because you are a monkey and monkeys clash with tigers, that means you're gonna have a bad year. It's cutting it to that, like, you like kind of like that pigeonhole package, like cute package zone that
Mhm.
doesn't give enough credit to the actual education and lineage. So yeah, if I talk about this in the podcast with mindful design. Is like, I know that the goal was to like talk about each of the energies of the animals, and I had to say, as I'm saying now, is like, it's just like 1/8, not even, it's minuscule. It's minuscule to look at your year of the animal sign and then be like, what is my destiny? Yeah, I really recommend that, you consult a Chinese astrology practitioner, read up on your 4 animals, and then just play with this. Like, how would the monkey talk with the tiger? Like, what is that going to look like?
Mhm.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think it would be really great to look at the child pillar, but then also to look at your elder pillars, what you are striving towards. The missions change,
Yes.
um,
Yeah,
as
thank
yours did from young water to young metal, right?
yeah.
So those 2 pillars, for sure. Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because it's similar to all different systems. Like, if someone was to ask you, what's your astrology sign? Would you just say your sun sign? That's giving like 1%
Totally.
of your energy.
I'm glad that you see that. And unfortunately, I think we grew up where Chinese restaurants gave you the menu with just your year, right? So that's as far as the Western mentality of knowing their animal sign, but not understanding the actual art and
Right.
science. Hmm.
Which is so complex. And it's like an ancient practice. I've heard like I listen to a lot of different like spirituality podcasts, and there's definitely some out there that or like ones that are critiquing the conspirituality nature of wellness industry, like similar
Mm,
to the work podcast, but Brittany and I, my co-collaborator, we actually still practice spirituality and wellness. Like, we believe in the mystical and metaphysical
yeah.
arts, but they will criticize Chinese astrology and acupuncture. And I'm like,
What?
bro, like these are ancient practices that are thousands of years old. Like, no. So it's like, I understand, like when you go too extreme to be too much in the spirituality and you don't bring it and ground it into the physical reality, as you were saying, like through your body.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like, we are living at such an important time in history where we can integrate multiple epistemologies to our crafts,
Mm, mm-hmm.
right? Like, the point of, and what I loved about your session was, yes, you learn about your energies, you learn about your astrology, but then you have to integrate it. And you gave like integrative steps like afterwards, which I really
Yes.
appreciated. Because you're like, what do I do with this? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
a rat.
Yeah.
No?
Yes, yes. Thank you for saying that there is a difference between knowing and like just having information
Mhm.
constantly at your cognitive level, and then actually taking in the oral transmissions into a deeper place in your soma, in your
Yes,
felt sense. And that comes with embodiment practice, which,
right.
yeah, in my previous trainings, I feel called to that path, is like embodiment and storytelling.
Mhm.
And integration actually is something that I feel our society, because of capitalism, we don't have much time for. It's like you can receive a session one day and then the next day you have like a whatever 40 80 hour work week and then forget about all the things.
Yeah,
So yes, needing time to digest and speak about it and move with it is important.
exactly. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but I didn't know very much about Chinese astrology other than I was a dog. And I know so much about the animals because I'm obsessed with animals. And
Mhm.
my first book that I begged my mom to buy was an encyclopedia of animals. And I
Nice.
watched videos about animals. I'm just obsessed. So I just knew inherently how a tiger maneuvers in the wild. And so just knowing that, I was able to like understand what this year was going to bring because just no tigers.
Yes. Yeah, something about tigers too, which I really appreciate, is um, tiger energy reflects the tidal hexagram of balance. So that's three yins over three yang signs. Um,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, that's earth over heaven.
Hmm.
And it's important to know that tigers can swing from extremes. So, what that means is, as much as tigers are known to be tenacious, bold, pioneering, risk taking, it's like you have to also be able to fuel and manage that energy, which means a lot of time to rest and recover. And as my teacher Mong had transmitted to us, is that tigers in the wild, they need 20 hours of sleep in
Hmm.
order to be able to hunt for their prey. Because when they go 200%
Yeah.
hyper efficient. And so some of the best tigers I know, my partner including my best friends, are tigers, year of tigers. And
Oh,
they do a lot of self-care. Yeah. They do a lot of resting. So I want to transmit that 2022 will only be sustainable to you if you remember that too and take that with you. Hmm.
yeah, and they
Yes.
hunt at nighttime and they're solitary animals, except when the mother's with their babies. But
Oh, okay.
but they are
Mhm.
they're not like pack animals like lionesses, because you know how
Mhm.
lionesses like work together. Tigers hunt
Yeah.
on their own, which I found so interesting. It's like
Yeah.
self-empowerment,
Yes.
being
Yeah.
stealth.
Hmm. Yeah. Tigers are not the best at hyper collaboration because they're so efficient. They'd rather do things their own way.
I can
Um,
relate to that.
total. For y'all, if you didn't know, Laura's a tiger in her mother pillar. So she's loving this right now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Um, I'm loving this conversation, by the way. I'm learning so much. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that people should know about this year, just
Mm.
generally for the year of the water tiger?
Mm.
You said get rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes. So if we follow the cyclical years of the seasons, that last year was yin metal ox, which is cultivating and building your foundation. 2022 might feel like, wow, this is the year that I go out and share to the world my offerings or experiment with it. It's not even, don't give yourself that pressure. No one needs pressure amongst the society. It's more like you get to experiment and play with your gifts with people that you trust and see how it lands and then grow and reiterate and adapt and see who you are in the face of your resistance. On the other side of resistance is pure, unadulterated desire and joy, right? So, like to do that work, to really to see what your fears are, right, and then to take steps to counter that, to reframe that fear into what is behind that. What am I actually desiring to put out of myself? Um, yeah, the energy of yang water tiger is very much like facing your fears and going with the the motion of the tides, and it can be emotional. Yang water is emotional. It rules that area. And you might cry. You might cry a lot. Floodgates are opening. Oh, also another shout out to one of my teachers, Mimi Young, Taiwanese shamanic guide. I took another Chinese astrology retreat with her. She said yang water could also signify like plumbing. So check your plumbing indoors as another like, yeah, very practical like feng shui tip is like
Mhm.
water, a lot of it.
Wow, it's so interesting because it is like lining up with what Western astrology is also saying about just it being more in touch with your emotions this year with Jupiter and
Mm-hmm.
Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Pisces is a fun
Exactly.
sign. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I want to actually ask you what your father asked
Oh,
you, which is at this point, do you feel like you're a leader or follower?
wow. I feel like I am a leader. My dragon is a leader. And actually, my elder pillar is sheep, which tends to be a follower.
You're a
So I'm
sheeper? You're
following.
a sheeple?
I'm a sheep. I don't want to say that. I'll say goat. But let me say this is like I am following my inner intuition
Hmm.
and following what people are saying, and my intention is to meet people where they're at, and I want to lead the revolution for us all to be able to do that, so
Hmm.
that we can communicate better and have better intimacy, better relationship with our bodies, to ourselves, to our astrology, to our path.
That's beautiful. Wait, so your elder's a sheep. I don't know if
Yes.
you don't want me to say this.
No,
So
no, it's fine.
you're
It's
a
it's
dragon and you said another.
my yeah, it's a young earth dragon is my year, and my month is Ian Wood Ox. My day, which is my mother pillar, is Yang Fire Tiger, and my hour, which is my elder pillar, is the Yin Wood Goat. So there's actually two Yin, two Yang. Tiger dragon are hella fiery.
Yeah.
And then get this, the goat and the ox are hella like really care about validation and what other people think of me. So
Wow.
it was a path just to be able to listen to myself.
Right. That's a
Mhm.
lot of polarity.
For sure, which is
Wow.
why I'm non-binary.
Yeah,
It's
I was
gender
just gonna say
expression.
I
Yeah.
was just gonna say that. That's like really beautiful how that is reflective of your energy. Wow, my mind is being blown right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh. You just said something too at the end. I really believe that astrology is a pathway for self-actualization
Me
because
too.
when you know your stars, when you know your energies, it's like our soul print. You can like follow your North Star literally and just not have to question what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
Tiff can help you with that.
Oh.
Ah. Oh my gosh. There's so many directions I can take this, but I just want to first ask you, was there anything else you wanted to share from your experiences, what you're offering, Chinese
Yeah, so
astrology, feng shui?
thank you. Right now I am in a period of expansion, even with my business offerings, as I'm filling up in more love for myself, right, in my path. And when I'm excited to get into more outside of doing these really lovely 90-minute BAZI reading sessions that I get to meet so many different people in the world, I want to be able to teach and really take people into more embodiment and integration of these pillars. And
Mhm.
so that's something that I'm calling in right now on your podcast is to integrate, my training in desire-based coaching, orgasmic meditation, fueled, sure, but to take my space holding, my storyteller, my artist, my healer, my visionary, and to merge all of that in helping people through transformation, as the dragon does as one of its missions, for a longer period of time, whatever that is, however that looks is subject to the conversations I have with people one-on-one, if they're looking for someone with my kind of energy. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well,
And then that's that. Yeah.
having a dragon as your energy is so auspicious, especially for a Chinese, right?
Yeah. It's very, yeah, yeah. Definitely having the dragon energy is a good ally, you know, in the back guide. And another thing I want to say is I'm finishing the I Love You letter series today with Pig. And so if you haven't seen that yet, please check it out, because it's just been my like tribute to the animals, and I'm excited to do another tribute to the elements soon. So
Yes, by
yeah.
the way, Tiff had a look at my chart in advance of our reading, and they said, you have a rat something. And I was like, what? Because, in New York City, rats are like rats. But when I read their post on Instagram and your poetry is just so beautiful, I felt so honored.
Rats are amazing. They're the visionaries of the earth. Yeah. Mm.
So check out their Instagram for all of the love letters to the animals. Yeah, and the last question I was going to ask you is what are you currently manifesting? What are you currently calling in? So you want to expand. It's like you're reading
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah, I feel like I was just saying that. It's like calling in the ideal structures to help be people guide into transformation. But for me, myself, outside of me in a facilitated role, is
Yeah.
more art, more creative inspiration. I want to be able to feel like I can get on stage and share my poetry and share my movements and share who I am as just a vessel of source and spirit. And so whatever that's going to look like, yeah, outside of just, I don't identify with labels, but outside of being a Chinese astrology practitioner, I'm also like an emerging artist that's finding my own way of expression through spoken word poetry or movement or soundscape, auditory, kinesthetic transmissions and visuals. Like, I don't know. I'm just calling in more exploration in that arena of transmitting embodiment. Yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. What are your big three in Western astrology, if you don't mind me
Oh
asking?
yeah, for sure. Capricorn sun,
Mm,
Sagittarius moon, and
wow.
then Gemini rising.
Wow. I was gonna say the dragon energy feels like Sagittarius because it's mutable fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Wow. The Capricorn, I would never have thunk it.
A lot of people are surprised with the Capricorn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Capricorn is something that it's an archetype that I'm currently healing because Capricorn is actually a yin sign and it is more of like the crone energy, but in our capitalistic colonization paradigm, it's become the daddy energy. It's become about hard work and climbing the proverbial ladder, but Capricorn is actually yin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I can see it for sure. But
Hmm. Hmm. Capricorn is actually tied to the body, right? The earth principle of being grounded in the earth. And so the earth is yin, right? Receptive nature. Um, Also very hardworking, but it doesn't have to have that stereotype of like climbing the social political ladder. So,
right. One last question slash thought that just came to my mind, which is kind of silly, but I'm making myself laugh. One one embodiment practice. Do you recommend people like acting out their animal?
oh, right. Oh my God. My sister said that I should get on TikTok to do like dances and embodiment
You
features.
should.
I know that's also, I guess, what I was calling in was more like play in that arena. So I'm calling in, and if anyone's a TikTok superstar knows how to do the technology, I'm calling in. If just reach out to me and
That's
help me
me.
with that. Oh, good. Okay, good, cool. I don't even know how to add audio to things. Like that made me real. That makes me anxious. Is technology sometimes, but
I
I'm
got you.
leaning into it. Thank you. Um, yeah, so an embodiment practice. I don't remember what your question was, but I really feel like with tiger energy, and I know y'all can't see me right now, but it's really like if you can let out that scream and that roar, like, "Rah!" Like
Oh, I like that. Like
literally, I just,
lion's breath in
mhm,
yoga.
yeah.
Like,
And
rah!
then like bring out your two hands from the center of your heart. And then when you're roaring, you just let it out, and like maybe let out your tongue out too. And that just like clears the pipes out a little bit. There might be some,
Yeah.
little anger, grief spots. It's okay. It's okay to let that out. So,
Oh, I like this. Now I have to figure out my rat, but I'm gonna let you know when I come up with
cool. Great. Good.
it. This was so like informative and beautiful. Was there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to share?
Um, I don't think so. Yeah, I feel very flushed out and very fortunate to be able to share as much as I did. I just want to shout out to my family who has watched me grow and stumble and fall, and my ego was shattered many, many times. And the fact that they support me in so many different ways. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm really blessed now. And I just feel coming up in March, I'm actually heading to Taiwan to see my family and see my grandma who raised me till I was 3. And so um, I think there's a lot of healing, more healing to do that I can actually bring from like a clearer, more confident, more aware place and not get stuck in the block.
That is
So, yeah,
so beautiful.
thank you.
Wow,
Yeah.
no words. Yes, and if you all want a reading from Tiff, I can't even call it a reading. It's like an experience. It's like therapy and just this beautiful session that Tiff curates. And I really highly, highly recommend it. I don't say that lightly uh, because my listeners know who I am. So I will link all of their information in the show notes and on the website. Thank you so much, Tiff. Happy
Mm,
Lunar New Year to you.
thank you so much. 新年快乐. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Laura.